Welcome back, Defenders. Let's check in and see how Russia's oil industry is doing. Every strike cuts petrodollars to Russia's war budget. Ukrainian drones hit a Gazprom refinery. SBU sources told the Kyiv Post that drones struck Gazprom's giant refinery in Bashkortostan, 1,400 kilometers deep inside of Russia. This was days after Ukraine hit the Saratov oil refinery. This is where this refinery is located on the map. This is pretty deep inside of Russia, about 1,300 kilometers or 800 miles. Here is the video showing the refinery on fire. One of the main processing units was struck and it looks pretty bad. We'll know more about what the damage is potentially in a day or two. Here's the graphic. It's been updated. This is the Ukrainian accounts that you can follow if you want to also see when this bingo board is updated. This is the refinery that was struck last night. This is Russia's 10th largest. Now, Ukraine did strike it back in May of 2024, but every refinery is on the menu. Every refinery that has not been struck recently, I do think Ukraine is eventually going to go for over the next couple months. What is stopping Ukraine? They have drones that can go 14, 15, 1,600 kilometers deep. This is causing gasoline shortages. Ordinary Russians are starting to notice. This is not being reported in Russian state media. They're saying that the reason why there are fuel shortages is due to holiday summer travel peaking. They're not explaining to their own people that all of their refineries are being blown up. But Russians still have Telegram. They're still communicating directly with each other, sharing screenshots and stories about gas stations without gasoline, fuel lines, Russians unable to fill up their cars. They are starting to panic. Transneft warns Ukrainian drone attacks may force oil production cuts. Because the pipelines, the pumping stations, the export terminals, the fuel depots, and the refineries are all blowing up, there's physically nowhere for the oil to go after it's been pumped out of the ground. So yes, Russia is having to reduce production of oil, as well as their exports. And oil accounts for 30 to 50% of the Russian state budget, in addition to the price of oil globally going down. This is the price of ICE Brent. The Urals trades at a discount at about $10. But this is the 5-year chart. Just look at the price of oil peaking in the summer of 2022, and it's trending down. In addition, OPEC Plus has announced they're going to increase production themselves, this is Saudi Arabia, starting next month. It's really not looking good for the Russians. Beyond this, this is Ukraine's winning strategy. They're going to continue going after the rail networks. All Russian military logistics under threat after partisans hit railway junction in Yekaterinburg. This is a Tesh, and these are either Ukrainians inside of Russia or Russian partisans opposed to Putin's government, but they keep sabotaging relay equipment. This stops train movements and deliveries are not on time. Now, Russia can fix these rail lines within a day or so, but this does slow things down and takes time and costs money and resources. Russia can't make this stop. I don't think whoever is doing this, Atesh, inside of Russia, this is their moment and they're taking every advantage to destroy these relay and switching stations so that the trains can't run on time in Russia. Beyond this, Ukraine is very much focused on air defense systems. Ukrainian forces burned 3 Russian air defense systems worth about $90 million with innovations. These are the Book M2 and M3s. Ukraine got another one yesterday. They released the video. And it's always kind of spectacular when an air defense system blows up because all of the air defense missiles also go off in the explosion. So I'll link this down below if you want to see the video. So here's the update from President Zelensky. 4-pronged Russian attack fails to crush Ukraine this summer. Zelensky reveals Russia's staggering losses. This is what President Zelensky has to say about Russia's summer offensive. Russia prepared offensive operations along 4 main axes this summer. Sumy, Novopavlivka, Pokrovsk, and Zaporizhia. The Sumy operation has already failed. Russia suffered heavy losses, especially in manpower, and has redeployed forces to other fronts. Ukrainian armed forces inflicted even greater losses on them there. I think we might name the exact area in the next 2 days. As a result, Russia is left with 2 operations, but it has lost so much manpower that it cannot deliver strong additional actions in the above-mentioned directions. I believe that, as of now, they lack the strength for large-scale offensives. Where is Russia's large-scale offensives? Putin just this week admitted himself there are 700,000 Russian soldiers in the occupied territories. So what the hell are they doing? I want to remind everyone that this was Russia's big summer offensive last year. In 2024, they were going to threaten the city of Kharkiv. They were going to take back this area in Kharkiv and apply pressure on Izium or Kupiansk or whatever. And the Russians never got past Vovchansk, the first medium-sized village that they encountered. They got stuffed. So the big summer offensive this year was Sumy, and they didn't even go 5 kilometers deep. They've taken tens of thousands of casualties with the help of North Korea, and they've achieved basically nothing in Sumy. Then you have the Donbas region. This is supposed to be their main offensive. They still haven't taken the city of Pokrovsk. They still haven't taken the city of Konstantinivka. They're not even close to taking Liman. I don't even think they have 100% control of Chasiv Yar. Chasiv Yar, Bakhmut, fell 3 years ago. I'm not laughing, I'm sorry, this is not funny, but the Russian military is truly pathetic. So this is a Russian Z-propagandist. His name is actually Maksim Kalashnikov. I did share a video from him a couple weeks ago, and he's been more vocal. With Prigozhin dead and Gherkin in jail, it's hard to get dissenting voices who are in the pro-Russian community. But this guy is speaking up because he is very concerned about what he's seeing on the front lines from the Russian forces. So this entire clip is 3 minutes. I'm going to read it all. Once again, this is a pro-Z Russian propagandist, and he's speaking the truth about how bad it is for the Russian military on the front lines. What kind of general offensive could we possibly be talking about? What, Odessa? Zaporizhia? There could be battles for large cities that would simply become a meat grinder for our forces. We'll just wear ourselves out even more if we start another mobilization. The economy will begin to fall 3 times faster. You understand. During this campaign, we didn't even put their energy system out of action. And don't even get me started on decapitation. We basically didn't try. Over 3.5 years, we've simply eaten up the resources that could have been used for a quick victory. We found ourselves up to our chests in the quagmire of a protracted war. And that quagmire could start to suck in the economy, because if the rear's economy collapses, it will be impossible to keep fighting. On the contrary, we'll have to accept the most disadvantageous terms from the enemy. What's happening now is precisely the result of gigantic failures in management and organization. And no matter how many Shanghai cooperation meetings you attend or whom you talk to, whether Xi Jinping or Trump, if those failures aren't fixed, nothing will help. Supposedly we came to liberate Russian regions, but we've turned them into ruins. Because of this drawn-out war, it turns out we've punished the most Russian, most developed regions of Novorossiya, Little Russia. Even though we should have taken them in 2014, we could have taken them intact. I look at the Vovchansk aggregate plant. What a great piece of machinery it was. Now it's gone. We're in a very dangerous position, stuck in a war we got ourselves into. Meanwhile, an economic crisis is developing at home that we can't fight because all the resources are going to the war. Damn it. Well, who do you blame for that? Are Xi and Trump going to solve the problem for us? The war will spill over into a terrible systemic crisis here. Unfortunately, yes, we'll have to say goodbye to Ukraine, to the dream of reunification. Well, not say goodbye, but bid it farewell for a very, very long time. The chance was missed in 2014. We'll apparently have to accept that Ukraine will retain this anti-Russian, pro-Western statehood. First, we'll need to rebuild, above all, the Russian Federation, turn it into a showcase. Do I even need to say anything? Russian propagandists understand this war better than I do, and when they screw up and speak the truth, they get disappeared. Honestly, after I read this in my video, because I know the FSB watches my videos, yeah, this guy is going to be arrested or disappeared for the crime in Russia of speaking the truth. Ukraine's plan A is peace. I do think President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people would take some kind of deal. If Russia was willing to stop attacking, stop advancing, stop trying to take more, we probably could get a ceasefire. And there could be some kind of frozen conflict in which relative stability could be achieved. But Putin doesn't want that. Putin wants to go for it all. And he doesn't care what it costs. He's enjoying the war at this point. Russia doesn't want peace. So plan B is $60 billion for the 2026 from the Allies. Ukraine asked the West to fund half its government as defense spending hits record 27% of GDP. This is the number, actually, that it was 3.5 years ago. Ukraine needs about $5 billion a month, or what is that? No, $5 billion a month, $60 billion for the entire year, to cover their own budget shortfall. The only reason why Ukraine economically hasn't collapsed and the Ukrainian military hasn't been defeated is because of Western aid and help from the Allies. So if Russia wants to test their own limits of their own economy, and we're going to see that limit in the next 6 months, Ukraine still needs financial backing, about $5 billion a month, and they can continue fighting until Russia collapses. That's the plan. Here's a clip I saw from the former minister of Lithuania. This is Gabrielius Landsbergis, and he spells it out. This guy's on social media all the time. He's a really good communicator, and he speaks the truth.
We should drop the naivete and admit the fact that this war, unfortunately, will not be solved in a diplomatic room. It will be solved in the battlefield. And Ukrainians are showing just how to do it. Develop your own technology and hit your enemy where it hurts. They did not ask for permission. They don't even, expect to apologize. They are just doing what needs to be done. And that's an excellent, excellent lesson for all of us.
This war will only end with kinetic means. Ukraine has to find a way to militarily win by exhausting the Russian economy. If there was a chance for a peace deal, a negotiated settlement, it would have happened under Donald Trump. Donald Trump was offering the Russians the best deal imaginable, a terrible deal for Ukraine. Trump was going to lift all sanctions, return all frozen assets, recognize Crimea as belonging to Russia forever. Russia gets to keep all the territory they've taken, no accountability, will end isolation, Putin can return to the G7 or whatever. Like, the deal is insanely good for Russia and terrible for Ukraine. And Putin told Trump no, because Putin wants it all, eventually. He wants all of Ukraine. He wants to link up with his forces in Moldova and take Moldova. He wants the Baltics. He wants to close the Suwalki Gap and have Kaliningrad touch Belarus, because he plans on absorbing Belarus and have that become Russia proper. This is about empire. So no, all of these summits, meetings, they're not going to go anywhere. The Russians are lying and they're just wasting time. They plan to keep killing people until they get their empire back. So let's now get to the politics, and I want to thank my friends in the UK. You guys inspire me. Trump arrives in the UK for a historic second state visit. and thousands protest in London over Trump visiting the UK. So thank you to my British friends for showing up and protesting my president. At the moment in the United States, we can still protest, but Donald Trump just designated Antifa a terrorist organization, so MAGA is trying to find a way to end our ability to protest here in the United States. But in Britain, I know it's contentious, but you guys still have freedom of speech and the right to protest. So here is what people did. I think this is outside of Windsor Castle to welcome Donald Trump. They unveiled a giant image. You know, you can welcome Donald Trump to the UK by sharing a picture with him and his best friend of over 10 years. And the trolling continued. Somebody brought a projector and projected images on Windsor Castle for Trump's visit.
On that tower, we see that tower behind me there, Tom, currently white. Just a few moments ago, protesters, anti-Trump protesters from the hotel opposite, we think, managed to project some images on there. And what were they of? As you can probably see from some of these pictures, Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew, and Jeffrey Epstein. That could not be a little more tricky and difficult just moments after Donald Trump arrived here. So, yeah, you couldn't really call it a security breach necessarily, but in terms of the diplomacy and laying on the charm, I'd say that was a bit of a massive failure.
If Trump wants the Epstein story to go away, then he can release the Epstein files, the client list, and prove he's not in it. But Trump will never release the files or the list because obviously he's on the list. But this is the purpose of Trump and Melania going to the UK. I do want to thank Prince Charles, and I thank the British people for hosting my president. You'll see the women are wearing blue and yellow. I don't think that's a coincidence. Additionally, I want to point out Trump's hand. It's looking pretty bad, but he's wearing a pound of makeup to cover the bruises on his body. There's obviously something wrong with Trump's health. You can also see kind of how big his ankles are getting, but at the moment, the White House is lying to the American people. But this is the purpose of the visit. Donald Trump loves rich people. Rich people are the only people he cares about. So Donald Trump was invited to be hosted by the monarch of England to persuade him to support Ukraine in a stronger way. Tyranny once again threatens Europe. King Charles links US-UK bond to backing Ukraine. Here's a clip from the speech that King Charles gave, and look at what his body does when he starts speaking about allies.
Today, as tyranny once again threatens Europe, we and our allies stand together in support of Ukraine to deter aggression and secure peace.
He says we and our allies, staring at Trump, support Ukraine. But Donald Trump doesn't really support Ukraine. The only thing that the United States is currently doing is selling weapons to Europe for profit at a markup, and those weapons can then go to Ukraine. Trump administration approves first U.S. weapons for Ukraine under the new NATO-funded deal. Here's President Zelensky. Ukraine has already received over $2 billion from partners, specifically for the Pearl Initiative. This is the priority Ukraine request list. In October, we expect additional funds, bringing the total to about $3.5 billion. The first two packages, worth $500 million each, will certainly include missiles for Patriots and HIMARS systems, among other capabilities. For the last 9 months, the only aid that the United States has given Ukraine is basically selling technical support and spare parts. Ukraine's systems that the United States used to donate need to be upkept and maintained. So that was like a couple $100 million here and there to helping Ukraine maintain current systems. But this is brand new stuff. There's specific stuff that only the United States can give to Ukraine, like Patriot missiles, Gimler's rounds, 155 millimeter artillery shells from our factories. This is what Ukraine is purchasing. Well, Europe is purchasing for Ukraine from the United States for profits. And the Treasury Secretary admitted that Trump put a 10% tariff on this. So the United States is making money. So if Europe is spending $2 billion, 200 million of that is just profit for Trump. Because he's a mafia boss. I'm sorry. This is entirely unethical. So if you're not American, you're not going to see why this story is important to you, but I promise it actually does connect to Russia and to Putin. So this man right here, his name is Jimmy Kimmel, and he's an American comedian who's been on late night, I think, for over a decade. Trump cheers comedian Jimmy Kimmel's suspension for on-air Charlie Kirk remarks. Jimmy Kimmel has been critical and making fun of Trump since his first term, and Donald Trump has wanted to see him fired from ABC for years. Donald Trump has tweeted probably dozens of times that he hates Jimmy Kimmel and he wants Jimmy Kimmel fired. So Jimmy Kimmel was not fired for anything he said about Charlie Kirk. The only thing he said is that MAGA was trying to cover up the assassin's identity as being one of their own, and the alleged assassin for Charlie Kirk is from Deep Red, Utah. He's from a pro-Second Amendment MAGA family. You can argue, yes, he was maybe radicalized by the transgender ideology or whatever, but he's still of MAGA. He's from Utah. So what Jimmy Kimmel said was actually accurate, and it wasn't offensive towards Charlie Kirk. He wasn't mocking somebody who was killed on TV, but Trump still wanted him gone, and they were looking for an excuse to pressure the independent agencies. So here's Trump's tweet. Great news for America. The ratings challenge Jimmy Kimmel show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. That leaves Jimmy Fallon and Seth, two total losers, on fake news NBC. Their ratings are also horrible. Do it NBC, President Trump. What Trump is now doing is he's using federal agencies to pressure or coerce corporations to silence his critics. The first independent agency he's using is the Federal Communications Commission. This is supposed to be independent, not acting on the orders of the president. But the current FCC chair is doing what Donald Trump wants. The other agency is the Security and Exchange Commission. Basically, this is supposed to be the independent agency that oversees and regulates mergers, acquisitions, IPOs, anything having to do with corporations that are publicly traded. This is Trump's FCC chairman. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take actions on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. This is Trump's FCC chairman on the Benny Johnson show. Benny Johnson took millions from the Russians last fall to help elect Donald Trump president of the United States. He is a Russian propagandist working with Trump's FCC chair to silence any critics on television of President Trump. So Colbert on CBS was canceled. His show will go off the air forever in May. Now Jimmy Kimmel has been taken offline. Jimmy Fallon, Trump was calling for him to be fired next. Seth Meyers, Trump wants him fired next. And eventually he'll go for Jon Stewart on Comedy Central and Bill Maher on HBO. When you control the regulatory agencies and you say, I'm not going to let you sell a company, merge with a company, or do anything related to business unless you do me a political favor. Silence my critics. Fire my opponents. This is how it starts. This is how it started in Russia. The countries where comedians can't mock the leader on late night TV are not really the ones you want to live in. In the early Putin years, Banning comedy shows was also a thing. Kukli on NTV was one of the most famous comedy shows to get cancelled in 2002. Putin apologists at the time called it a business decision. This is a famous comedy show in Russia that Putin had taken off the air called Kukli, which just means puppets. I've heard of this show before, but if you're not familiar with it, here is an ABC Australia broadcast summarizing it a little bit.
Every week, NTV presents a satirical program called Kukli, meaning puppets. It's been merciless to Putin since he came to power, portraying him as Napoleon, as Mr. Hyde, even as a science fiction monster.
These were comedians using puppets to mock the president of Russia, and Putin hated being made fun of, so he had this TV show taken off the air. I can link some clips down below. Here's another clip I found. This is Boris Yeltsin, and Putin is portrayed as a giant baby. There's conversation going back and forth. You can find some of these clips on YouTube if you just type in Kukli, Kukly, but this is what authoritarians do. This is what dictators do. They go after the comedians. They go after the late night shows hosts and silence them before they start going for the smaller fish. If Trump and MAGA can successfully remove from television everyone they hate, yes, eventually they will put pressure on the tech giants to deplatform any critics of MAGA, any critics of Trump, and eventually my YouTube channel will be deleted. That is MAGA's ultimate objective. I don't think that'll happen for another couple years, but this is a sequence of events that need to happen where MAGA and Trump are successful suppressing free speech. They used to have free speech in Russia. You used to be able to make fun of the president on television, and Putin put an end to that. And Trump wants to put an end to that too. So what can you do to help this? And we need to put pressure on Disney. Disney owns ABC, and ABC is the one who fired Jimmy Kimmel. So the number one thing you can do right now is cancel your Disney Plus subscription. If you have a Hulu subscription, an ESPN subscription, cancel those and tell Disney why. I'll just show you my comment here. You have sided with fascism and surrendered to pressure from Trump to silence free speech in America. F you guys until Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air. In addition, boycott the parks, don't go to Disneyland, don't go to Disney World, don't pay tickets, don't go to the theaters to see any Disney movies, Pixar movies, Marvel movies, or Star Wars movies. All of these are owned in the same giant conglomeration. I like Disney. I like their movies. But if they're going to bow down to Trump, then I'm done with them. I'll spend my money on people who deserve it, people who support free speech. Let's wrap up this video with some good news. UK to build a $400 million drone plant as Ukraine war drives demand. I think this was announced with Trump's state visit, but thank you so much to the Brits. You guys are incredible people. Latvia delivers new batch of Patria armored vehicles. Thank you so much to the people of Latvia. Final clip once again is a report from Zarina Zabriskie. She continues risking her life every day by remaining in the city of Kherson. If the Russians knew where and when she would be, they would definitely try and kill her. And this report is incredible because Zarina went to this southern district of Kherson. So you have the main city here, but because of the river delta, there's like an island, and there's only one bridge connecting the main city of Kherson with this little partitioned area. The Russians have been trying to bomb and destroy this bridge to isolate this part of the city because they want to do a water landing across the river and then get a foothold on the other side. This is a suicide mission for the Russians. It's not going to work. But Zarina crossed the bridge, and I want to share her reports from this area.
Cross the bridge.
Just walking.
засідці, ну, він не двіжущийся. І коли машина буде десь поруч проїжджати, то він злетить.
А це не... А що ви там було?
Це прильот був, це артилерія була.
Евеліна, а тобі страшно?
Раніше було страшно, зараз вже звикли.
Вже на всі евакуації, де я там їжджу, допомагаємо людям по безпечним зонам. Завжди опановую свій страх. Оце все время Отче наш і житті на небесі.
So right now we live in the island.
Oh.
This was incredibly dangerous to do on a clear blue sky. If you want to try and move around when it's cloudy or raining, that's the safest time because Russian FPVs can't operate as effectively, but Zarina made this trip obviously when the skies are clear and blue, so that was very dangerous. But Zarina, I hope you stay safe. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.